Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and I am so excited to share with you some of the newest research linking the brain lymphatics that drain about 3 pounds of toxic plaque and chemicals from the brain every year to the movement of the cerebrospinal fluid. There have been lots of studies done on therapies that actually help increase cerebrospinal fluid. But now we know that the cerebrospinal fluid is directly linked to some of these newly discovered brain lymphs. So here's how it works. It's literally like a wash for your brain. There's cerebrospinal fluid that goes up and down your entire spine and into your brain. It's actually very much like lymphatics in the way that there's a plexus of blood vessels in the base or center of your brain that pushes this plasma or this lymphy cerebrospinal fluid into the ventricles of the brain. And then that fluid sort of washes through the entire brain and gets actually collected into the veins that line the brain. And those veins or have a sleeve around them, and that's where they discovered those brain lymphatics or those lymphatics. That actually the lymph vessels, like a sleeve around the veins, grabs onto this toxic cerebrospinal fluid and takes it out of the body through the lymphatic channels, in particular the cervical lymph and also the lymph in the sinuses in your nasal mucosa, which is really powerful information. So stay with me for a second. We have the cerebrospinal fluid that actually drains into the lymphatic system throughout the spine, pushes the cerebrospinal fluid from blood vessels into the brain where it's primarily manufactured, washes the brain of toxins like mercuries and these magnetites, these iron ore chemicals, these from air pollution that I just recently wrote about that build up in your brain tissue. So many fat-soluble environmental toxins and pollutants find their way into our brain tissue, and this cerebrospinal fluid washes it. And if it doesn't wash it, or cerebrospinal fluid flow is compromised, which is super common, it's actually shown that the aging process is linked to a 50% reduction in cerebrospinal fluid. Lack of cerebrospinal fluid flow is linked to increased cognitive decline and a host of other health concerns. So keeping that fluid moving, washing, lubricating your spine is like really, really important. So this fluid goes into your spine, pushes into these ventricles of your brain, washes your brain, and then it gets uptaked into these lymphatics that surround the vessels, particularly in the superior sagittal sinus, which is like in the pattern of a mohawk haircut, which is exactly where Ayurvedic medicine said these lymphs were thousands of years ago, and that's exactly where they discovered them about 2 years ago at the University of Virginia, that these lymphs were lining the sagittal sinus and the transverse sinus of the brain as drainage centers for brain toxicity and waste that the brain is trying to get rid of, up to 3 pounds of toxic plaque every year. So now those lymphs that are taking up the toxic cerebrospinal fluid drain through the sinus or the nose lymphatics. So one of the ancient Ayurvedic strategies for cleaning out these brain lymphs was Nasya technique, where you take some herbalized sesame oil, you sniff it into your sinuses, not just for lubricating a runny nose for your sinuses, but actually to get and stimulate sinus stimulation to increase lymphatic drainage of the toxins out of your brain. That was the original concept and strategy of this Nasya technique. Now, I've written an article called Sinus Cleansing and Emotional Baggage. In the article, I have a link to that, which tells you the step-by-step of the traditional Ayurvedic practice to detoxify the brain in that way. And they were talking about thousands of years ago, we're detoxifying old toxins, yet old emotions as well. And there's a direct link Ayurvedically to congested lymphatics of the brain, poor cerebrospinal flow, and emotional toxicity. And the science shows that congestion of these newly discovered lymphatics are linked to cognitive issues, mood-related issues, inflammation, infection, and even autoimmune type concerns. So when the central nervous system can't drain its waste, obviously bad things are going to happen. The major computer is not able to communicate with the rest of the system, and that's a bad situation. So they also discovered in another study that when you breathe deeply in through your nose, and particularly during forced inhalation, that stimulates in a significant way the flow of this cerebrospinal fluid. And the more cerebrospinal fluid you have flowing, it washes the brain even more efficiently, pushing those toxins into the brain lymphatics out through the cervical limbs and out of the body. So deep nasal breathing, pranayama exercise, have been done for thousands of years, are now understood to be brain detoxifying, energy-inducing techniques. The parasympathetic rest, digest, rejuvenative nervous system, when you relax and you're calm, stimulates cerebrospinal fluid. When you're under stress, fight or flight, it shuts it down. So when you do something like our 1-minute meditation, there's a link to that as well. It's a free 1-minute meditation. You do deep breathing through your nose, followed by a deep restful meditation. You're activating cerebrospinal fluid, plus you're engaging in parasympathetic activity, and you get that super surge of cerebrospinal fluid flow. In addition, the research we did years ago in the early 90s on nasal breathing exercise versus mouth breathing exercise. Mouth breathing exercise is linked to fight or flight response, run up a tree, save your life. Nasal breathing exercise is linked to a parasympathetic activation, calms you down. So nasal breathing exercise, the movement of your body while the body's calm, a fantastic way to drive increased cerebrospinal fluid flow and pushing those brain lymphs to detoxify in a more efficient fashion. Yoga, meditation, breathing techniques, all now understood and how they function by pushing the cerebrospinal fluid and getting the lymphatic system to drain better. Pretty cool stuff. Osteopathic medicine, the traditional cranial sacral therapy, all about these cerebral lymphs and draining the lymphs and the cerebrospinal fluid. Powerful medicine. Even chiropractic subluxation theory, absolutely breaking up scar tissue in the spine, allows the flow to take place. Massage, facials. There's veins that pop through the skull of your brain that when you massage your head, that increases cerebrospinal fluid and lymphatic drainage as well. So many amazing techniques, from nasal breathing exercise to meditation to yoga to breathing to massage to even facial massage, deep head massage. Please check out the article associated with this video and start to understand how you can take advantage of increasing and enhancing your brain lymph waste removal and the washing of your own brain in some very simple strategies that have been used for thousands of years, but now have some pretty amazing science to back it up. And please read all the research there as well. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Villar.